Welcome to the Consulting Kingdom, the ultimate podcast for business consultants who are ready to master their craft and make a meaningful impact as a kingdom business. Hosted by Patrick Bell, this podcast dives into powerful strategies and actionable insights that will help you grow in your consulting expertise. Through expert interviews, the Consulting Kingdom pulls from our guests their advice and equips you with the tools and knowledge and heart direction necessary to drive extraordinary results for your clients and your business. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media for exclusive content and updates. Now, get ready to unlock your consulting potential with the Consulting Kingdom.
All right. Hey, everyone. Patrick Bell here with Frank Scivally with Cascade Properties and Investments. Known Frank for a few years in the consulting world. He's also a business broker, does a few things. So, Frank, I want to kick it over to you. Tell our audience who you are, what you do, and let's jump into it from that angle.
Well, first of all, I guess from a professional side, as you said, I'm a business broker and real estate broker. We own Cascade Properties and Investments. My wife and I run it jointly, and we've been in real estate for about 25 years now. She a little longer than me.
You're in the Seattle area, right?
We are in the Seattle area, just east of Seattle, about 30 miles is where our office is located. But we actually service all of the Seattle and East Side properties. We go from Marysville to Tacoma and from Seattle over to Cle Elum. So large area.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm an old retired military officer, Air Force officer. Went from that into consulting for the Department of Defense. Did that for 5 years on spacecraft and heavy launch vehicles. Traveled an insane amount to the point to where it was affecting my health. Decided to go do something else. So I entered a franchise operation selling computers and software out of a business that I'd started. And after doing that for a while, I tried to sell my business and was working with a business broker that I couldn't stand. And I said, well, after 2 years, I think I can do this myself. So hence business broker. So a lot of training, a lot of time spent understanding what it was, and actually entered another franchise that was strictly a business brokerage franchise. And we ran that for about 8 years and sold it off in 2012 and then moved up here because family was up here. So we wanted to come up this way. So here we are. And that's about it in a nutshell as far as my leanings toward a professional life.
Oh, so you're a Christian man as well. Tell me a little bit about your faith journey.
Well, because I was, and this is something that's kind of personal, but because I was in the Air Force and was a Minuteman launch officer, in other words, one of those guys that sits underground about ready to annihilate half the planet in 3 minutes, I felt it very hypocritical to show up at church on Sunday and profess my faith, and I could never wrap my head around that. Just the hypocritical side of that always bothered me, and that was my own personal baggage. That's just me. So I didn't actually attend church on a regular basis until I was probably 50 years old, and I was baptized at 50.
Wow.
So that's just me. And since then, I've stuck with pretty much non-denominational churches. Calvary Tucson was my first large church that I went to, and today we go to the East Side, and I try to do what I can. Like I've been on 2 or 3 mission trips to Mexico and Houston. I help with the Houston stuff and that sort of thing. So it when I can and where I can,
How does your faith, taking a little side tangent here already, that's fine. How does your faith integrate with let's just focus on the one side of your consulting, which is the business brokering. Like, how does that impact you on a daily basis?
Well, I've had a discussion actually Wednesday. We have some folks that are snooping around trying to buy our business, and I'm getting to the point where I probably should retire, but I'm not quite old enough yet. So I'm only 72, so I don't want to retire.
You didn't look a day over 71, so that's fine.
So we she's snooping around from Century 21 and other places thinking about buying us, and she said something that's kind of interesting. I told her a couple of stories about how we had started our business, how we run our business, and she said something about integrity, and I says, that's what it's all about. It's having the integrity to help people, treat people the way, honestly, you want to be treated, and help them make life decisions that's not going to hurt them. I cannot, nor would I, hurt anyone in a business deal knowingly, ever.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at, and I really, I'm very partial to a couple of words in Ephesians, where it says, always be humble and patient, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. And that's where we reside. That's where I like to fall in. I want to overlook those faults and take care of people.
That's great. Yeah, we need a lot of grace through the day, right? As we deal with people in,
Absolutely.
Often a broken world, and people. Interesting, I'll let my wife tell her story, her own time, but she's lost a lot of vision in her right eye due to retinal. And as you look at her, you can't tell that her eye is not completely whole. And I think just a lesson for us as we look at people, they're not always whole inside either.
Exactly.
They've got baggage, they've got problems, and we have to come in with a lot of grace and a lot of listening. I think a lot of humility and listening, saying, "Why isn't that person doing it that way?" Like, there's often a story behind it, that we're not seeing on the outside.
Yeah, I would think that's one of, or maybe the most important attribute about being a consultant or a broker, whether you're residential, commercial, business brokers, whatever, or consultants, is that you have to be a good listener, number one, and you have to be a critical thinker, number two. You have to be able to have that ability to think through their issues, looking at it from their side, and seeing if you can lend a little light on the subject and kind of help them work their way through the problems that they're having. I think that's critical. I learned that. I actually taught for university for about 10 years, and they always gave me the critical thinking class to teach. So I did a lot of those, and I keep referring back to that because it's helped me in so many ways to do that.
So, as a business broker, tell us some stories about like how you consult and how you've approached that whole area of business brokerage. Tell us, enlighten us a little bit about that, and maybe how it ties into other people, even who are maybe other different types of business growth consultants or something like that.
Well, in a way, we are growth consultants for many businesses because they're looking to acquire another business to expand what they have. But as an individual who is wanting to let's say, sell their business, retire or whatever, we get into a consulting role, trying to find out what they're going to do when they sell the business, because most people are lost. The business has been their life. I'm in the same boat, honestly. If I sell this business, I'm lost. But it's a complete life change. So you're not only dealing with the business itself, but you're dealing with their life and their family and how it affects their family in the future. So one example was I took on the sale of a business here in Bellevue, actually, and it was a very interesting little business. It was an Asian fellow and his wife who were building binding fasteners for skis and snowboards. And you look at these things, and it's just a little screw with a little nut, and there are different types of them. There's about 40 different types that they had. And
Yeah.
he was having them built in China, where he grew up. They were shipping them here to a warehouse in Tacoma, and they were costing him, I don't know, 10 cents a piece or something like that, minimal amount.
Sure.
But he had, through his 20 or so years that he had worked in this, it was his design, so he'd had engineered and done this. But through his 20 years or so, this guy had a business that was worth about $8 million.
Okay.
And we worked with him for about 6 months to sell it. And there's a lot of hand holding going on, of course, during that selling process. But what was really interesting in that regard is he was the seller here in Bellevue. We had the buyer over in Illinois. We had the SBA who had to approve everything, and they were in San Diego. And we had the bank in Missouri. So I was the pivot man on all of that. So it's just, knowing how to deal with these folks and what to do. And it's a challenge, but it's fun. It's fun as well. It's a lot of fun. A lot of headaches. That's why I'm so gray. So
okay. So now how do the fees work for a business broker? Do they take a % of the sale?
Yeah.
From each side or from one side?
It's a one side. It's from the seller, just almost like a regular real estate deal.
Yeah.
It's usually anywhere from, depending on the business, it can be anywhere from a few percentile points. It could be as little as 5, and could be as much as 20, depending on what kind of business it is, how long it takes, and what kind of work you do. But it's all spelled out in the contract, listing contract. Usually, I've never gone over 10 on one. Usually, I'm hanging around 8%, and I split that with the other side, so I end up getting 4 or 5, and we're happy.
Okay. Wow, interesting. So I can just hear people thinking in the audience now. If I had that ability to hear people thinking, but people are thinking, "Oh, well, that sounds like a great deal. How do I get into business? Become a business broker?" So for those people, how would you direct them to say, "Here's where you should start. Please do not start over there. Do this. Go here." What would your advice be there?
Call me.
Hobby?
Call me. No,
Call me. Okay.
Yeah, it is. For me, it was frustration that got me into it, trying to sell my own business with a broker who was just not ethical. And there are a lot of unethical brokers out there in the business world. And M&A is even worse. When you get into mergers and acquisitions, even worse.
Yep.
So, in my mind, the best way is to go to work for someone that maybe one of the larger franchises in business brokering. Sunbelt's one, Murphy Business is one. There's others, and go through their training program. And you're going to spend. And I tell everyone, don't quit your day job, because it's going to take a year for you to hit a deal, most likely.
Wow.
But it can be very lucrative. I mean, I have a friend in Montana who was making $1 million a year doing this, and it happens. It's not impossible. It's just you just got to keep striving and getting those listings and moving the business system. So it's a very lucrative business. It really is. If you succeed at it, it really is.
Okay. I see like an opportunity that I'm not sure a lot of business consultants maybe fully and ethically exploit, would be for a business consultant to team up with a business broker. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. Like a large number of businesses, or the number of businesses come to a business broker. What % of those businesses do they turn away, saying you're not ready for sale?
Oh, a lot. Yeah, quite a few.
Like we're looking at 80-90% here, maybe?
Yeah. I would say this. A lot of business brokers will take any listing and then
Yeah.
they will beat the seller down on price until they can finally sell it to someone or give it away. That's I think that's probably one of the most unethical things someone can do in this business. First of all, we take or I take 3 years of their tax returns and P&Ls and balance and their current balance sheet,
Sure.
and I try to define what I think the business is worth in this market today, because it's always changing. Things change, and
So let me like interject here a minute. What are the primary ways to value a business? Or maybe we'll hop back at that after you finish there. Let's go back there after after we finish this
okay,
little blurb here. Go ahead.
okay. Well, anyway, take those 3 years of data along with their P&L balance sheets and that sort of thing, and try to determine what the value is, and then basically you list it to the planet and see if you can get a nibble from anywhere, and start working that until you can make a marriage. And that's really what it's all about. You're making a marriage with someone who
Okay.
wants a business. And to your question about valuing a business, there are a number of rules of thumb, which none of them really work very well. There is a gentleman by the name of Tom West who was a business broker in California for probably 50 years. And he and his son put together a business reference guide. It's about the size of a good encyclopedia,
Okay.
and volume. And he has calculated over the years the businesses he and his company had sold over the years, and about what they are based on volume and sellers. One of the big key factors is sellers discretionary earnings, which is basically what does a seller actually take home at the end of the day before
Yeah.
taxes. And that is used with a multiplier, and that multiplier can be anywhere from 1 or 2 all the way up to 10. I used to think one of the ones that used to grab me, just shake me pretty well, was dry cleaning companies have a multiple of 10
Okay. Wow.
in his book. I've never sold one, but I've valued a couple. It never worked out that well, but
Yeah.
yeah, they were very lucrative at one point. Now everybody's afraid of the environmental problems that go along with those, so they're hard to sell.
Sure. Okay. So the valuation methods are we looking at discounted cash flow or
Yes.
asset based or a combination of those different things?
Well, you have cash
Multiples
flow.
of revenue.
Yeah, you have cash flow, multiples of sellers' discretionary earnings, and then the asset is like if they own the property on the assets
Sure.
themselves, then that rolls in on top of that. So that's how you value those. And fair market value, like if someone has a machine shop, let's say with $1 million worth of machines that they bought over the years, it's not worth $1 million to someone who's buying it. So you look at fair market value in today's market. It could be 100,000, or it could be worth more,
Yeah.
just
Sure.
depending. Usually we get someone to come in and give us an appraisal of those kind of machines. It takes a while to figure that out. And once you do, you have
Okay.
and the next question is to someone who's selling a business is, what would you really take for this? And I use this question: if I rolled up at your front door with a truckload of gold bars, how many do I have to drop off in front of your door to get your business? Yeah, and that usually works to get them to give me an answer that this is what I'll genuinely take for it, even though I'm asking maybe 2 times that for it.
Yeah.
So
And so, do you find that like there's a percentage of people who will like, let's say I'm looking for $1 million for my business. On average, what would I expect to get in reality? Like, is it generally most people don't sell for what they think it's worth? They get a fraction of what they're hoping for. Do you know any numbers around that?
every business is different. And as a matter of fact, the guy who did the little ski inserts was thinking his business is worth 100 grand, about 100 grand, because that's what he had
Okay.
that's what he had in assets down in the drop ship location in Tacoma. But you see what it turned out to be. So it just works out well. I mean, everyone's different, and you just have to work through it. And there's no cut and dry. It's 6% of this or 10% of that, or it's just not.
Okay.
Every business is different.
Do you see an opportunity for maybe a consultant who's in the business growth space to joint venture either with yourself or with any number of business brokers out there? Because from what I understand of the people who are business brokers, they're often just turning away people. And these people are trying to sell, but they become an ideal client for a business growth strategist or a business growth consultant who will come and say, "Hey, let me help you get to the place where you can sell."
Right.
Is that a big opportunity, or what? Give me reflect on that.
I don't know if it's a huge opportunity, but I think it's an area where that should be explored more, because we're two different groups running in two different paths. I think there's certainly
Yeah.
some room for a merger there, that we come together and work together. I've been to in talk with many business owners who believe their business should be worth three times what it's really valued at. And the first thing to do is, what are you going to do to get it there? Because it's not there yet. It's never going to sell for that. So what are you going to do to get it there? And
Yeah.
that would be the first thing to do, is find a growth consultant and work with them. Yeah, I think it could definitely be a nice little marriage if more people would look at it that way, I think.
Okay. Um, Now, if I remember, there was a company we both were involved in the past, and you helped me with some valuation side of software there. Um,
Oh
and
yeah.
maybe I'll call on you for our, yeah, that little thing we did. We won't mention any names or anything, but um, maybe I'll call on you again for what we're building and for later this year, coming out with. We got something a little bit more robust. We're going to come out with.
Soft,
So
Software is an interesting animal, um, in that it changes so dynamically, both good and bad, in a matter of hours sometimes. So
mm,
um, it's hard to value. So it's just basically, where are you at right now, and what are you doing right now, and then we
yeah,
apply those multiples and come up with some kind of a number. Um, it's Lisa and I actually had a little software company at one time, and we were a little ahead of the game. We did a piece of software called Broker Anywhere that was before the internet was the internet, and you could do what we do now on the internet. We used Palm Pilot, so you would actually download from a server that we owned your data, and then you use your Palm Pilot during the day when you're in the field, and then at night you just upload it back up, and everything was there for you on your server. We owned the server. We developed or tried to develop the software, but the backbone just wasn't there. It wouldn't support it back in those days. So I found a company in Australia that had written pretty much the same thing we were trying to do. They had done it and put it online, and it was to support the UN.
okay,
So I licensed that software from them, and we used it for a number of years. It was great. It worked really well. Um, and but the value of that today, zero,
wow,
because of everything that's out there now. So
yeah,
no, it's difficult. It's difficult to put a number on stuff like that.
wow. So, what kind of things now? You're 72. What kind of things are you exploring now? Either knowledge based, intellectually, possible opportunities. What else? What are you looking into? That what kind of books are you reading, or what kind of things are you learning that would be you think an audience of consultants would be like they might find interesting?
Well, I spend a lot of time in the real estate market, obviously, because we do have that brokerage. I listen to and read a lot of information put out by a guy by the name of Brian Buffini. Maybe you've heard of him. He's a big real estate consultant out of California, and we actually require our brokers to sign up with his program and and go through his program for a couple of years before they they're out on their own. And he's very much a faith based consultant, and probably one of the biggest brokers in the U.S. This company.
How do you spell his last name? It's Brian
Buffini.
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 Great. Okay, there we go.
And he's just, yeah, he's done a great job of building his um, cadre of consultants in the real estate market. And he's really a good guy to listen to. Another one I think is good. I got the book over here. I'm still going back and forth in it. It's a guy by the name of Ken Coleman. I don't know if you've heard of him or not. He's written a book called From Paycheck to Purpose.
Oh, okay.
You may have heard of that. I don't know. This is it.
No, I haven't.
Um, he's one of the guys. You always hear this thing: if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, that's kind of where this is at. So it's how to move from the things you hate, the job you hate, working 40 hours for trading time for money, and then moving into your own business and loving what you do. So it's really an interesting book in that regard. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing these days.
Okay.
I spend an enormous amount of time on listening to podcasts and things that we're doing now.
Oh, good. Okay, good to know.
I love the. Are you familiar with a movie that came out not long ago that was put out by the Robertson family called The Blind?
No.
It was it's a faith-based movie. It's about Phil Robertson and how he moved his way from being, just a heathen, if you want any other word to put it, horrible guy, to building duck calls and becoming one of the really a premier soul. That guy's probably baptized 1,000 people himself.
Wow.
And no conversation with him ends without him sharing Jesus with you. So it's that guy, and his whole family's that way. So he has they have a podcast called Unashamed, and it's basically an online Bible study, and it's great. They do 3 a week, and so it's really worthwhile. I like it, but you learn how to.
I'm great. I'd love to look that up. So that's Robertson out of Duck Dynasty.
Yep.
Now doing the Unashamed podcast.
Unashamed podcast.
So,
it's Phil.
Good.
It's Phil
for our listeners.
It's Phil and 2 of his sons and 1 of his nephews, and it's really interesting. And they really do deep dives on certain sections of the Bible every time. It's very interesting. I love it. So I spend a lot of time with that. And then I want to volunteer more. I want to give more. I was trying to get down to Cuba on a mission trip, and I talked to our lead pastor the other day about going, and he says, "Guess what? They're all full." Of course they are.
Oh, no.
They're going to Cuba. Of course they're full. Anyway, but I would have loved to have gone on that. But yeah, it's okay. We'll end up. I'll do 1 or 2 of those a year just to get out of the normal routine for a few days.
Especially in January, February in the Seattle area, we'll get you out.
Well, you want to go to Mexico? You want to go to Mexico?
We'll bring you to. Well, keep Kenya in mind. We might want to bring you over to Kenya or Portugal, where we're going to be. So, sounds good. So, Frank, where can our viewers, listeners find you online? How can they get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
All of our information, mine and Lisa's and our company's, is online at cpiwa.com.
CPI?
Yeah, it's Cascade Properties and Investments, Washington, cpiwa.com. And everything's there, including all the listings and things that we have. Plus, I don't keep any business brokerage information there. We use a totally different system to market businesses, and that's an international site that we use for that. But our local CPIWA will get you all of our info and how to contact us. Everything's right there.
Great. So if people want to learn more about being a business broker, or they want to sell a business, or have you help them sell a business,
or buy a business,
that'd be a good place to go.
Or buy a business.
Or buy a business. There you go.
Or a house, or lease a commercial property, or we can do it all. That, it's interesting. People say, "Well, you're a one-stop shop." Yes, kinda. We've had experience in all these different areas, and I think we're a little unique in that regard. And it doesn't make any difference. a listing is a listing and a sale is a sale. And it's just not that hard to do. It's really not.
Okay.
It's really not. But
well, thank you so much, Frank. Really appreciate you and appreciate the time we've spent together today, and look forward to seeing what God does in your life and through you and through your ministry and your ministry, which is a business, and through you and Lisa, and appreciate you a lot. So God bless, God's rich blessings to you.
And you too, my friend. You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Consulting Kingdom. You've discovered valuable insights and strategies to enhance your consulting practice and to make a meaningful kingdom impact in your corner of the world. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps us to reach more consultants like you. To experience the Kingdom Growth Engine software firsthand and to stay connected, follow us on social media and visit our website at kingdomgrowthengine.com. Until next time, continue practicing your consulting skills, offer your assistance generously, bring value wherever you go, and serve with the heart of a king. Cheers!